Today we are going to discuss silver and global commerce. Where did we know that silver? There was two places that we saw silver. Where were they? Close. South America and Japan. Yeah, you were close. Okay. So Japan, that would be something I'd probably make sure you have in your notes somewhere. Japan and South America were known for their silver. Who wanted all the silver? China. China wanted all the silver. Anybody remember exactly which dynasty? The Ming. The Ming. Okay. Spanish America contained 85% of the world's silver. That's a lot of silver. South America. China had a large tax that they required from merchants and their population that must be paid in silver. This created what is called a silver drain. So what I want you to picture is like when you like drain a bathtub or drain a sink, how the water swirls and goes away and all gets collected in one spot. That is what happens to the silver. It is being sucked from everywhere else in the world and put into China. So nobody else in the world is really collecting this except for China. If you want to trade with China, you have to pay in silver. Now, they also did this to the people that lived in China. So if they lived in China, if you wanted to pay for something, you had to pay in silver.
So a bunch of people like probably were hard.
Yes. So then people focused more on selling goods and less on farming. So they ran out of food, which caused famine, a lot of people to die. So then they had to kind of like, because what happens when people die and we don't have a lot of food? There's nobody to work. The population decreases greatly. And so we don't want that. So the government, if the government is not taking care of you, what happens? Uprisings. So you're going to see China go through some uprisings and some tough times. Yes. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at this picture here. So this is a silver mine in Potosi. This is the colonial era painting showing the enormously rich silver mines of Potosi. It is a mountain. It's a silver mountain where they mined it. They mined the silver. So if you look at this picture, what does this look? What is your original thought when you look at this picture?
Volcano.
Okay, volcano.
Are those black people
I
down
did
there,
ask. Yes, it is. There are Africans down here working the silver mines.
There's a white person I'd say. There's a lot of houses.
Okay, we see a lot of houses, so it is by a town.
Is that farmland on the mountain?
Yes.
Is that like a thing in the background?
Oh, what in the background? Right back here?
Yeah.
Another one? Yes.
Or they. Oh yeah.
Where is Potosi at?
There's a Potosi, Missouri, not the same thing.
That's what I thought.
I know.
Where is it located?
Because we like running in.
Where is Potosi, Missouri located?
No.
Oh, Potosi is in close to Latin America.
So it's like South America.
Yes. Unfortunately, even though this image does not look brutal and harsh, because it was probably painted by a who? By a European. Probably painted by a European because it doesn't look bad. It looks pretty. Looks like they're just working, right? Just a nice little working area. Unfortunately, they were exposed to poisonous gas, poisonous mercury. Mercury is not good for you.
Isn't that like the liquid metal?
Yes, that is in like thermometers. Yes, it is very bad for you. Okay, so even as silver is transforming the world and the world economy, because now everybody wants to get silver so they can trade with who? China, because China has all the good luxurious stuff. Like silk. Okay.
Wait, so why does China want silver? Like just because they think it's cool? They want to own it all, right?
They look at it as a commodity that is important to have kind of like now. There are a lot of people that are worried about the United States dollar. And so people are buying gold and silver. You'll see signs that say, we buy gold.
Yeah.
People want to have that because they know that no matter what, that will always have a value. People buy silver coins. They'll buy gold nuggets and bars.
I love chicken fries.
Chicken fries.
Oh, I had chicken fries.
All right. Let's go ahead and look at our map. And I'll come back to this for you. Here's a map of the silver trade. Remember how I said that maps are very important for your test? I promise you this one's on there. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask, okay? So silver is going to be one of the first major commodities to be exchanged on a genuinely global scale.
So everybody else started liking it.
So that's important to know, that it is the first thing that is globally traded. Like you've got commodities that go back and forth from place to place, like food and animals and people. But this one is traded by everybody. This is the one thing that gets traded on every continent. So remember that, because that's really important, and that's really key to understand the importance of silver. Like silver is almost like air during this time period.
What about gold?
Gold wasn't quite there. Most of the gold was like in Africa, until they had the gold rush.
Oh, yeah.
Sugar was also traded heavily. But the difference with sugar is it was also produced here and in the Arabian nations, but it wasn't something that was used as a tradable commodity. It was more something that people just purchased. This was used as a form of financial exchange. Okay, so based on this map, what role did silver play in global trade? Why did a majority of silver end up in Spain and China? Why would it end up in Spain?
Because
Global commerce.
well, because what isn't that like where like they all the silver came from China got it.
Okay, let's look at the map. Let's look at the map. Oh, here's Potosi right here, right in the middle of Latin America. I thought it was higher up for some
I
reason.
did too. I thought it was like Central.
Okay, look at the territory. This is where I want you guys to start analyzing maps. Why would Spain, we talked a little bit about China and why China wants it. Why does most of it end up in Spain? Well, here's Potosi. We know that that's where the silver mine is. Who owns that land?
Spanish territory. Yeah.
It's a Spanish territory.
So it's all going through Spain.
So it's going to go to Spain and China.
Because Spain. Wait, oh yeah.
Because Spain owns it.
Right? Was the Silk Road still operational?
Yes, it's still operational today.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
I thought that it stopped. Like, is it like a road though?
It's not quite what it was, but it still exists.
Is it like a highway?
Probably parts of it. Do
what?
what?
My dad has this collection of silver and he buys it offline.
That's what our dad's
That's my stepdad does too.
That's what our dad's bond over. Anytime Brett Dorton is at my house, that's his for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll be sitting at the dinner table and he'll have his live stream showing and my mom's like, just turn it off. She hates it. And then he gets new silver and he's like, Christy, come look. And my mom's like, Brett, do you really think I care? It's so funny.
Nice. Silver is going to be a financial catalyst for global trade in the early modern period, being a medium for which goods from around the world were paid. So everybody is using silver as their financial catalyst. It's going to be a springboard of sorts. Spain is going to control much of the silver, basically because the mines are in Potosi. So is Spain going to have a good stronghold in their trade with China? Absolutely.
They got the silver.
And really, everybody's going to want to trade with Spain to get silver. So Spain is going to become very wealthy.
Which is why they They got all the awesome buildings.
Well, that and the fact that the Jews, the Christians, and Islam all
were there.
culturally were there together,
But that wasn't
which I'm going
forever.
there and I'm very
That
excited
wasn't-
about.
That wasn't forever, though, right?
No, it was a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, enough time to build these awesome buildings.
Yes.
Wait, Spain, right? Spain was rich. Spain was rich.
Yes.
They got all the silver.
Missed a space there. China was also a significant storehouse of silver because it largely refused to accept any other form of payment for its globally desired goods, and because the Chinese state required tax payments in silver.
Okay, the Europeans were like, we need our silver.
So-
why is gold more expensive?
There's less of it.
Really?
Supply and demand.
So wait, why do people like gold? Because gold is just like this soft metal.
It is. Titanium is more
Because like gold rings are way more expensive than.
because there is more gold than there is silver. I mean, there's more silver than there is gold. All right, here is a short
Over the
cartoon.
course of a century, 60% of Earth's silver would be mined from one mountain.
This is a really good cartoon.
To get an idea of what this city was like, think the violent
Here.
street.
me go
Course of
back.
a century, 60% of the Earth's silver would
Earth's.
be mined from one mountain near this city. To get an idea of what this city was like, think the violent street battles and gangs of New York. To amp it up a little bit, where nearly everyone is high on cocaine. A lot of cocaine. And many are suffering from the paranoid, anger-inducing effects of mercury poisoning. This high-altitude, absurd carnival of death and decadence was called Potosi.
So mercury poisoning made them crazy. See, it kind of shows it. I love this cartoon.
They're just all kind of like high and
Yeah, so they're all
The
high
story
mercury
begins
poisoning.
when a prospector, with the help of the local Indians, stumbled across a massive vein of silver that had been exposed by the fierce cutting winds high in the Andean mountains. The Spaniards had quickly expended the massive golden windfall from the sacked Inca and Aztec empires. And as a few still searched in vain for the mythical golden city of El Dorado, a very real city of silver would quickly take shape in the Spanish viceroyalty of Peru. Seemingly overnight, a massive labyrinth-like metropolis began to take chaotic shape. Twisting narrow alleys offered a small respite from the never-ending bone-piercing wind. This chaotic mismatch of extravagant villas and modest huts, peppered by gambling houses, theaters, churches, workshops, warehouses, and whorehouses, attracted mercenary sword and pistol for hire, artists, academics, priests, prostitutes, laborers, and traders from Spain and beyond.
It's Vegas.
Enticed by the tales of seemingly unlimited wealth pouring out from the earth. I am rich Potosi, treasure of the world, king of all mountains, and envy of kings, read the city's coat of arms. During the extraction of the massive initial silver vein found at Potosi, Spanish refiners could not manage to get their furnaces hot enough to separate the silver from the rock. But the Indians, whose small hilltop ovens harnessed the wind in their favor, were able to get the job done, setting up dozens and then hundreds of small ovens that were able to carry Potosi through the first 20 years. It was said these fires glowed on the mountaintops like fireflies around the city. And then, by the mid-1560s, nearly all the exposed silver on the surface of the mountain had been mined and production was steadily slowing. The Spanish king was obviously very concerned over the slowdown in production, as the empire began to increasingly rely on the steady flow of silver from Potosi to pay for Spain's vast armies and armadas. A trusted acolyte of the king was sent across the Atlantic to solve the problem of the shrinking shipments of silver. After months of traveling, he arrived in Potosi. He thought the city was a dump. He would get to that later. First, the silver production needed to increase. Because the exposed surface silver had been mined, ever deeper mine shafts and larger labor forces became necessary. He exploited an old Inca practice of paying taxes by providing a tribute of 1 year of labor out of 8. He organized all the
Encomienda.
local tribes in the area to pay their tithe of a fixed number of men, 18 to 50 years old. Temperature and humidity differences between the depths of the mine and the surface meant pneumonia and respiratory infections were rife, with one mining boss noting, "If 20 healthy Indians enter on Monday, half may emerge crippled on Saturday." A demographic collapse in the surrounding countryside, caused by the burden of this labor tax that all too often meant a death sentence, earned the mountain the nickname Quechua, meaning the mountain that eats men. This labor force was further supplemented by a large number of African slaves. However, they were not accustomed to the harsh cold and high altitudes, and nearly every consignment of slaves would completely succumb to death. Regarding the problem of smelting of the silver in an efficient manner, he had a solution for that too. He brought over a process that had just been invented in Mexico a few years prior, but he would implement it on a massive scale. Finely crushed silver ore would be mixed with salt, water, copper sulfate, and then dumped into a pool of mercury, thoroughly mixed by horses and men, and presto, near pure lumps of silver could be sifted out from the sludge and minted in a coin for which a mint was established, and turned out millions of silver coins. These coins, ocho reales, the iconic pirate pieces of 8, were so widely circulated that these would have been the majority of the coins in the pockets of America's founding fathers, and was legal tender in the United States until 1857. Toxic mercury workhouses and massive dams powering a plethora of stamping mill facilities were built all over the city. When one of the dams burst, severely damaging a large portion of the city, Toledo turned this crisis into an opportunity to rebuild this chaotic city on an orderly Spanish grid pattern, with a large, beautiful plaza at the center and long, straight, broad avenues. Although much more aesthetically pleasing, these straight, broad, open corridors were perfect for the icy Andean wind to shoot down. After 11 years on the job, and a massive overhaul of pretty much everything, not only in Potosi, but the entire Viceroyalty of Peru, the king's man took a moment to bask in his achievement. He then received a summons to return to Spain, where he was tried on corruption charges and incarcerated. He died shortly afterwards under abysmal conditions. Potosi continued to expand after his death, fueled by an allure of an apparent infinite tide of wealth. There was a pitiful attempt to control the flood of newcomers to the city. However, with forgers, bribes, and corruption, incompetence, newcomers couldn't be stopped. Many men joined the crews of merchant ships with the intention of making it to Potosi. One trader commented, "In every port where merchant vessels put down anchor, they jump ship and leave behind their duties and obligations, absenting themselves in anticipation of the liberties and uncertain riches of Potosi." Upon arrival, on top of having to deal with the freezing temperatures and cutting wind, our newly arrived adventurer had to breathe air that was thick with soot from many thousands of charcoal-lit fires that burned 24/7 in every part of the city. Carbon monoxide poisoning increased the difficulty of breathing at such high altitudes, and for a sizable percent of the city's Spanish population that was involved in the myriad of jobs surrounding the handling of massive amounts of mercury on a daily basis, irritability, lack of self-control, insomnia, tremors, fits of anger, and violent irrational behavior are a few of the symptoms of mercury poisoning that they would have to deal with.
No.
A solution was found in a local plant, first decried as witchcraft and sorcery by the local clergy.
They eventually figured it
The
out.
coca leaves that the Indians chewed on at high altitudes, giving them increased stamina, was a welcome respite from all the less than comfortable side effects that Potosi had to offer. The clergy quickly changed their minds, hailing the plant as a wonder cure. The priests would make a powdered form of the plant that rapidly became very popular, especially in Potosi. For those who were made of tough enough stuff to survive a few years in Potosi, there were fortunes to be made. Those who could save or steal enough to buy a mill, a workshop, or a mine shaft, and then another and another with the profits, accumulated immense fortunes in a short period of time. An author of the time noted that the city's residents nurtured such elevated thoughts, exemplified by mining boss Domingo Beltran, who reportedly proclaimed himself to be among the world's most important figures. The Pope in Rome, the King of Spain, and Domingo Beltran in Potosi. However, many of these fortunes would be as short-lived as the city's average life expectancy. Like everyone else in the city, the mine owners found innumerable reasons to hate each other, and this led to constant violence. First, small groups of bodyguards and hired swords would be brought on to protect the mine shafts and palatial villas. Then, a rival would hire more men, and back and forth it went. These gangs evolved into two main factions, those controlled by the Basques from northern Spain and everyone else. Heavily armed and finely clothed, ruffians would amass in the city's plaza. The scene was surreal. Every year or two, this city of over 150,000 souls, at 13,500 feet above sea level, would stage battles between gangs dressed in finery. Oxygen-starved horses dropped dead where they stood. In a few cases, thousands would die in these exchanges. This chaotic world, high on its own wealth, megalomania, altitude, and cocaine, would not last forever. By 1700, all the easily accessible and larger veins of silver had all been mined, and production was lower than a third of what had been at its height. The population had fallen to only about 60,000 as the factories and workshops ran silent and work could not be found. The insane wealth, violence, and spectacle of Potosi had faded into legend and eventually obscurity. But the city's silver had changed the world forever, facilitating the exchange of slaves, fabric, spices, and other goods across the globe. Much discussed in Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, Potosi helped fund the Spanish Empire's wars with the British, Dutch, French campaigns in Italy, Germany, Africa, Asia, and the New World, and helped them overcome the Ottomans. Potosi is such a fascinating example of human nature in an extreme environment. The setting has all the hallmarks of a Hollywood blockbuster or an epic HBO series. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did making it and researching this topic. I also have some...
So in Potosi, picture like Vegas, where everybody's winning lots of money and everybody's on meth.
Well, if
That's about what it was like.
it sounded like they didn't have clothes.